What do we like?
Oxford.
The sound of the start of the weekend. What does it sound like?
This.
Yes, the Not the Top 20 betting show sponsored by AK Bets. I'm Ali Maxwell, champing at the bit because I think I found 2 value goal scorers at double-figure prices and I'm excited about it. George Ellick is also champing at the bit because all his picks are in the Championship. All that and an under squad, that'll be the pod. It's for over 18s only. Gambling is risky, comes with significant risk. It is possible, as I'm finding at the moment, to go on a really poor streak. And that means losing money. So keeping a consistent and manageable staking plan, never betting more than you can afford to lose, never chasing your losses. It's incredibly important to make sure that bad streaks do not cause you problems. So please be responsible and sensible if you are having a bet, and head to gambleaware.org to brush up and just get a steer on the ways of avoiding irresponsible gambling. George.
Hello.
I think that last week's one of the funniest betting shows of all time. And
that is what we're here to do, is cause laughter.
I didn't necessarily feel that way on Saturday, but let's go through it. Your nap, Brentford win 2-0 against Argyle. You said the only away goals Argyle have scored this season have been shots from range.
So, winner?
No.
Okay.
Loser, Morgan Whittaker.
Okay.
25 yards.
Yeah.
No one closed him down.
Bing.
1-0. We had a double next best, which was Walsall to win 2-0. Walsall won 5-1, and Tranmere's goal came 5 minutes after Tranmere had gone down to 10 men with the score already at 2-0. That was pretty good. My nap was Birmingham to win 2-0. They beat Lincoln 2-1 with a 91st minute penalty conceded for absolutely no reason whatsoever from a player that had been injured for the last few months and was just a little bit overexcited to be on the pitch.
Win 2-0, winter is over.
Maybe. My goal scorer, Jack Lancaster, did not score. Carl Piergiani's game was called off. And your long shot was Salford draw no bet. They lost 8-0. And your goal scorer pick was Matteo Joseph, first goal scorer. He hit the post at 0-0.
Yes.
It's good.
Do you know what's really annoying? Obviously, I backed Joseph first goal scorer as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't watching the game. I had no idea he hit the post until you just told me.
Oh, that's incredible. I've been waiting to tell you because I thought that might be the case.
So that is upsetting.
So, look, didn't feel great on Saturday, and, you know, as is always worth saying when particularly I'm going through a really bad streak at the moment, sorry. Obviously, these are picks that I feel passionate about, strongly about. I'm backing them myself. It doesn't feel great when they don't win. We're going to endeavour to find value this weekend, and hopefully the odds fall in our favour this time, and the gods smile upon us. George, what is
you know it's bad when you're asking God.
What is your best bet of the weekend? What's your nap?
Derby to beat Watford at 13-10 is my nap of the weekend. And the way the Championship's been going this season, even if we ignore the teams involved, basically backing home teams of two sides that are relatively similar in terms of quality, backing the home team at anything odds against is value because teams just aren't winning games on the road anyway. When you factor in that in Watford, you've got one of the worst away teams in the whole league. They're 18th in the away league table. They've won 2 of their 13 away games. Their goal difference away from home is -10. Coupled with the Derby side, who for the most part have been pretty strong at home. They've won 6 of their 12 games. But I think if we dig a bit deeper into Derby's home form, it's better than it actually looks on paper because they've won quite a few games very comfortably at home. We've got a 3-0 win over Bristol City back in August. We've got a 4-0 win over Pompey recently in December. Even a 2-1 win on Boxing Day at home to West Bromwich Albion is pretty impressive. Yes, they've lost 3 of their last 5 at home, but they didn't really deserve to, I wouldn't say. Like, the expected points from those 3 games is much higher than they actually, well, than 0. There was that Swansea game where they conceded twice in 10 minutes and then created about 4 XG, and it was an absolute onslaught after that, but they weren't able to score the 2 goals to get back into it. There was the Sheffield Wednesday game, which they lost 2-1, Jamal Lowe scoring in injury time. I watched the entirety of that game. I'd backed Sheffield Wednesday in that game. That was one, we just talk about lucky losers, unlucky losers. That was a very lucky winner there because in the first half...
They do exist as well, it's worth saying.
In the first half in particular, Derby were like just by miles a better team and didn't really let Wednesday get into them. Like, credit for Wednesday for working their way back in, but there's no way Derby should have lost that game. And even the 1-0 defeat against Leeds last time out, losing at home to Leeds, there's no shame in that. They were in the game for long periods of time. So there are promising aspects, I'd even say. Even going back to the 1-0 draw at home to Argyle, like Argyle weren't very good. They scored a long shot and they drew the game 1-0. Derby at home are pretty strong, much better than away from home. They are able to impose themselves with their ridiculous physicality, especially in home games.
Feels like them Pompey, Oxford, 3 promoted teams from League One last season, all finding things perfectly manageable at home. And
that was weird.
What? And very much struggling away from home. Now, the away side, obviously, Watford here, a team that you've had some real wranglings with this season. Are you excited to be backing against them?
Not really.
Well, it's an agenda, isn't it?
RIP my socials. It's an agenda. Watford on the road have been pretty poor most of the season. Last seen on Tuesday night, getting a 1-1 draw away at Cardiff, where I messaged you and our good friend David Walker, Watford fan, saying, can anyone check Watford for a pulse here? And then Vakun Bio scores about 5 minutes later to make a 1-1. But they weren't really in the game for the most part. Cardiff dominated the game. They were 1-0 up. And they will feel incredibly frustrated they weren't able to make their dominance count, and they weren't able to put the game to bed before conceding late. We saw them lose 3-1 away at QPR, where again, QPR took the lead relatively early. Watford felt like they had some good chances, but QPR brushed them aside relatively easily. They are struggling to pick up points on the road relatively consistently. They haven't won an away game since the 6-2 win at Sheffield Wednesday back in November. And I just think between these two sides, if Watford turn up and play the way they have done recently, especially in midweek, also having played in midweek is another angle here, where of course after a busy Christmas period, the fact that they've had to play midweek compared to Derby, who've had a rest, is important.
Both away as well.
Yeah, and I think if Derby turn up and put in the consistent kind of performances we see from them, then they could make pretty light work of Watford. So 13-10 for the home win, I'm pretty strong. I'm not going to go quite as nail my colours to the mast as I did with Brentford to 0 last Thursday, but I'm bullish that there's value in that.
On the river where they used to build the boats. What's that haunting tune, George?
Sunderland Till I Die theme tune.
Sunderland Till I Die, that is correct. What a show, what an intro that is. And that's playing in my brain all week, really, because the context of this betting show is it follows a couple of days after our mid-season predictions podcast, and we laid down some stances, some stronger than others, and it gives us an opportunity this weekend where it's relevant to do so, to put our money where our mouths are, which I think is important, and it's something that we enjoy doing. And this is the best opportunity for me, because I was pretty punchy on the show that I don't think Burnley are going to finish second, and out of Sunderland and Sheffield United, I think it's Sunderland most likely to finish behind Leeds, as I said on the show, and I won't bang on about it for too much longer. I think they're the best side of those three, Sheffield United, Burnley, Sunderland, even if they might be fourth at the moment. And I also think they might have another level, whether that's Enzo Lafay, their new midfielder, that brings that out of them, or whether it's just them continuing to grow as a team. I like their balance all over the pitch. I definitely think they're better in attack than Burnley and Sheffield United. And there's so much focus on Burnley's incredible defensive record, and they have only conceded 4 goals at Turf Moor this season, which is pretty intimidating. But Burnley have failed to score in 4 of their 12 home games, 1/3 of their home games. They've only won 6 of their 12 home games, 50% win rate at home, 6 draws, no defeats. So there's a lot of ways of looking at it, and if you're looking at it from a Burnley angle, you'd say, well, they're unbeaten, and I'm picking Sunderland draw no bet here. But I think the fact they've only won 50% of their games, and when they have won, they've rarely won by more than 1 goal, I think they do struggle compared to some of the other teams gunning for the title to stand up and put teams away at home. And I think there's a chance here for Sunderland to be the first team to beat them. Sunderland, really strong starters. They've been ahead at half-time in 12 of their 26 league games, whereas Burnley normally a lot slower out the traps. But I think we can basically leave stats to one side from this point on and say, basically this comes down to the fact I'm backing Sunderland draw no bet. The reason is simple. I've watched both of these teams play a lot of football matches this season, and I think Sunderland are a better football team based on what I think I've seen. And therefore, I think if they play out their best or near their best, they have a greater than, 27.8% chance that the odds imply of winning this game. I am taking the draw no bet here at 8-5. That's with Nick Goff in mind. When we talked about it the other day, he made the point. If you're on the team that, particularly away from home, if it's 10 minutes to go and the score is 0-0 or 1-1, are they likely to be going hell for leather to try and win the game? Probably not the case for Sunderland here. They would take a draw, but I think that at 0-0 and in the first half of this game, they could well take the game to Burnley and get ahead and hold on to it. So really excited for the game, excited to be stancing hard, which is where I like to be. Sunderland draw no bet, 8-5 away.
You used to dance hard, now you stance hard.
That's Sunderland draw no bet away at Burnley, my best bet. Next up for you.
Kind of rinse repeat with what we just said. A Pompey side who are very, very different at home compared to away from home. And they are 130 to beat Middlesbrough. And I think there might be a bit of value in that. I was kind of hoping, I went through the games yesterday and I saw Pompey was 7-2 at home to Borough. And I knew they were playing Blackburn that evening. And I knew I fancied Blackburn that evening. And I was like, hopefully Blackburn are going to beat them. And then they'll go out to like 4-1. Yeah. Hasn't happened. They've been back this morning instead. Pompey's home form is like really kind of weirdly good. I remember when Oxford played them back in October, I watched our game against them and we drew 1-1, but Pompey were by far the better side. And that was at a time where they had already been beaten at home twice and hadn't won yet. But as the fixtures got easier, because then they played Luton, Sunderland, West Brom, Sheffield United. But as the fixtures got a little bit easier, they've started to show that they are able to pick up points at this level fairly consistently at home. You've seen a 3-1 win over Preston, a 3-0 win over Bristol City, a 4-1 win over Coventry, and a 4-0 win last time at home against Swansea. So I'm basically saying ignore the away form. Irrelevant. I again, as regular listeners of the show will know, I don't understand how it can be so pronounced, the gap between away performances and home performances, but it is, so we just have to accept it. And Pompey at home are a very good side. Up against a Borough team who I would say are kind of stuttering a little bit. They've only won one of their last, they're unbeaten, we should say, in their last 6, but they've only won one of those, or 2 of their last 6, one of their last 5. But away from home, they have found it difficult against some teams you'd expect them to beat. They lost 1-0 away at Derby. They went to Argyle, as they always do, and drew 3-3, which seems to be the score whenever those two teams play against each other. They've been beaten on the road a few times this season, albeit against better opposition. But given that Pompey have managed to, in recent home games, put 4-goal margin between them and Swansea, a 3-goal margin between them and Coventry and Bristol City, 2 against Preston, like there is like a genuine gap there that is repeatable game on game. Where Pompey are really enjoying playing their football at Fratton Park. So for them to be 3-1 plus at home to beat anyone in this weird league where no one seems to win many games away from home just kind of feels like a bit of an auto bet to me, where presumably a lot of the rating and a lot of the reason for Pompey's price is baked into their away form. And I'm basically at this stage in mid-January happy to just write off Portsmouth's away form, Argyle's away form, Luton's away form, because they're different sides on the road.
My next best is Huddersfield to win at Blackpool in League One. The price with AK Bets 6-4. Huddersfield are a brilliant team. Something that, again, you'll have heard if you listen to the Monday pod. George and I both predicting Huddersfield to finish in the top 2, above Wrexham, above Wycombe, even if they are 4th in the league table right now. In the last 15 games, they've won 10 and drawn 5, setting an incredible points return, only conceding 8 goals in those 15 league games. And not only that, this is a team that was already excellent from back, the goalkeeper. Chapman's doing really well on that front, up until the top of the pitch. So goalkeeper, defence, wing-backs, midfield, everything working really, really well. Strong team, unbeaten in 15. But there was a piece of the puzzle missing. Any Huddersfield fan would have been able to tell you for much longer than 6 months, probably a couple of seasons now really, that it's at the very top of the pitch where they're just missing something. And they've bought 2 puzzle pieces this week for one missing piece of the puzzle in the form of Joe Taylor and Dion Charles. Like, this is pretty cool in transfer terms for Huddersfield. Like, sitting back and watching Birmingham City spend a lot of money, Wycombe start the window looking pretty bullish and spending quite a lot of money, Wrexham, and Huddersfield, they laid down some cash in the summer a little bit. They made an early signing, the left wing back, early in the window. Then they've just gone out and bought 2 potent League One strikers. Dion Charles, who's done it over quite a long period of time. I do think League One is probably a bit of a ceiling for Dion Charles, and I'm not that surprised, or not as surprised as others, that he's never got the championship move. I think he's in the right place here, playing for a strong League One side. I expect him to score goals for this Huddersfield team. Joe Taylor, I think we're still yet to see his exact ceiling. Scored so many goals on loan at Colchester in League 2 and then Lincoln in League 1. He's had 6 months warming the bench at Luton, so we wait and see how sharp he is, but he's certainly someone that I just see as a real a bit of a killer in front of goal. He's got a real sort of hunger for scoring goals. So I'm pretty excited about the fact that they've signed 2 goal scorers where they've been really struggling for goals at the top of the pitch. But they're not just goal scorers who are going to not help the team elsewhere. They're both hard workers, work rate, mobility, pressing at the top of the pitch. So I'm feeling pretty good, I think it's fair to say, about Taylor and Charles having joined Huddersfield. In the same time period, 15 games that they've won 10 and drawn 5, Blackpool have won 3, drawn 6 and lost 6. They are currently winless in 5, but it's worth pointing out draws away at Birmingham and Wycombe were very impressive performances. They have only scored 3 goals in their last 5 league games, and I just find Blackpool so weird this season, right? Their underlying numbers have been good from the very beginning, even though they didn't win in their first 7 league games under Critchley, and the vibes were horrendous. The numbers were like, no, still a fairly coherent team, not giving up too many shots and taking a fair amount. Critchley loses his job, Bruce comes in, they win 4 in a row in his first month, then they don't win for 8 games, then they win 3 away games in a row against Bristol Rovers, Shrewsbury and Reading, and now they're 5 games without a win. So impossible to really know Blackpool's exact level. But I definitely fancy Huddersfield to be the better side here. Lastly, a tactical thing. Blackpool are playing 4-4-2 under Bruce, which is great stuff. But I always like a 3-5-2 against a 4-4-2. I think it gives you the extra man in key areas of the pitch. And it obviously means that Blackpool should, in theory, have more joy out wide, where they've got Apter and CJ Hamilton. But I think, overall, I expect Huddersfield to win the midfield battle. I trust in their back line at the moment. And they've got these 2 new strikers eager to impress at the top of the pitch. So Huddersfield went next best at 6-4 at Blackpool. Shall we do goal scorers?
You may have noticed I was quite distracted during your pick there.
Yeah.
You know how there's a Maxwell shirt over your shoulder just there?
Yeah.
Who's the shirt we got for me?
Mikael Helik.
Just announced signing for Oxford.
No!
Yeah,
just signed Helik.
Yeah.
And that's not great news for my next best.
Helik for Helik.
Albeit I wasn't expecting Helik to play because he was ill last weekend.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that?
Excited.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, look at his face.
I'm going to have to get a shirt with Helik on the back.
Oh, I love how much you still love Oxford United transfers.
No, more to do with he's got my name.
And he's called Helik.
Yeah.
Oh, this is incredible.
What's quite funny is that my dad is called Tom Ellick.
Yeah.
And yesterday when we signed Tom Bradshaw, I was like, when was the last time we had a Tom? And I've gone and signed a Helik.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And breaking pod news as well. Well, I forgive you for being distracted, but
Sorry.
Just so you know, Huddersfield at Blackpool, 6-4, my next best. Goal scorer, please.
My goal scorer.
Yeah. Anytime.
Whatever price he is, I don't care. I am distracted. Colby Bishop, anytime, 3-1 for Pompey home to Borough. I've already spoken about why I think Pompey have a good chance in this game. Interestingly, obviously, Colby Bishop missed the start of the season due to his heart condition. Mm-hmm. But since he returned, since the 1st of December, he has the highest expected goals in the whole of the Championship with 3.8.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Colby Bishop.
Correct.
Good on him.
He's only scored 2 of them. But we know that he's a pretty good finisher. He's never going to be someone who's going to, I think, outscore their XG. But he's someone who gets into good positions and is a good goal scorer. Mm-hmm. So if I believe
sometimes just a bit tired from all the headers.
Yeah. And should be on pens?
Yeah. For sure.
They haven't got one since he's been back playing.
Definitely on pens. He scored a pen.
Missed quite a few.
His first goal back was a pen, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, in November.
Lovely moment.
Missed quite a few last season. He is just 3-1 to any time for a team that I think are overpriced anyway. As I say, the player in the league that's getting on the most good chances of anybody. So at 3-1, should be starting up top. Has to be a bit of value.
I'm annoyingly excited about my goal scorer pick. My goal scorer is Oisin McEntee to score for Walsall at home to MK Dons at 14-1. Now, McEntee, the reason for the pick is this guy is one of those who can play centre-back and he can play central midfield, and he's done a fair bit of both. But he came in for the last league game against Tranmere. He played in one of Walsall's number 8 roles. They have a sitting midfielder, 2 number 8s, and those number 8s have pretty attacking role, and in particular attacking the box when it's out wide and being delivered. McEntee is 6'4". He's a big lad. He's not the sort of box-to-box midfielder prototype, but I think he's quite effective at this level for a few reasons. And because he's playing number 8 for Walsall, who are the best team in the league, who are odds on to beat MK Dons at home, an MK Dons team that barely ever keep a clean sheet. For him to be 14-1 to score any time, I think represents huge value. For reference, Jamie Jealous, who will likely start, is 100.
Dennis Jealous
is 100-30 to score.
Yeah.
And Charlie Lakin, who's the other number 8, whose place I think McEntee is taking, is 7-2 to score any time, which is about what you'd expect for number 8 playing for a team like Walsall. And we've got McEntee around 14-1 when I would expect him to be around 5-1. He does have some goal scoring form. He scored in 3 of his 20 league starts last season, another 2 in the Cups before an injury's kept him out of most of this season so far. He's a set-piece threat because he's a big unit. He scored 3 set-piece headers last season. But I've got a really specific vision of a McEntee goal here, which is that Walsall's, one of their sort of almost like cheat code moves that they have is Taylor Allen, the left centre-back, stepping forward into the final third. They work the ball quite well with him and the left-back Gordon. And at some point, one of those two, depending on who gets the space to deliver, will deliver across into the box. Gordon normally from the byline, Taylor with brilliant delivery from deep. And if McEntee is playing as the right-sided number 8, as he did against Tranmere, he will be at the back post, attacking the box late, probably challenging with fullbacks for headers at goal, just like he did against Tranmere and hit the side netting. So got a really clear way where Walsall's number 1 pattern of play, in my eyes, could and should end up with McEntee being in the box and trying to get on the end of crosses, and he's a big unit who's used to scoring headed goals. So the only concern here is rotation. You know, Lakin has started most games this season, but McEntee started last weekend. In midweek, they both started in the trophy, but Lakin played full 90 and McEntee came off after an hour with Jealous rested. So I'm thinking that's to line up with McEntee and Jealous as the 8s this weekend at home to MK Dons. Checked with a Walsall fan, Matt, who said he reckons 60-40 in McEntee's favour. So I'd be tempted to wait for team news, but I don't have that privilege when we record on a Thursday, and I just can't ignore this because I think I've found something here. If McEntee starts in midfield for Walsall, at odds on at home to MK, who haven't kept an away clean sheet all season, then 14-1 will be an excellent anytime price. That's my pick for the goal scorer, McEntee of Walsall. Long shot time, George.
My long shot is Bristol City to beat Coventry away from home 2-0. Win to 0, winter not quite over. 5-1 this is. With Coventry, I'm kind of taking a chance that I've spotted something, and I'm a bit worried about the trend of their performances right now. I mean, since Frank Lampard and Joe Edwards came in, they obviously started pretty well, but from an attacking perspective, their attacking output, if we take out the 4-0 win over Argyle, which I think we can do because everyone beats Argyle at home. You've got drawing a blank at home to Millwall where they weren't particularly good, a 1-1 against Cardiff and the 2-1 defeat at Norwich where they've created kind of very little within those games. And I worry that they posted some really good numbers under Mark Robins, that their chance creation trend is downward. And they're up against a Bristol City side. And we know as well that Coventry are going to dominate possession and they will play a very high line. And even though this season it's been a little bit less pronounced because Bristol City and Liam Manning have found a way at Ashton Gate to dominate the worst teams at home, which is something that he's really struggled to do in his career so far. But away from home, it's a very different story. The only 3 teams they've beaten away from home, Borough, who we know their style of play and the way they approach games, they won that game to 2-0. Norwich, very similar in terms of their outlook and the way they look to play games, especially at home. They won the game 2-0. Preston North End a bit different, where they won that game 3-1. But they've won 2 games to 0 there against teams who I would say in terms of like style profile are relatively similar to what they're going to come up against in Coventry. And they went to Sunderland and drew 1-2. There have been some bad results in there as well, but those like Blackburn, very different style of play. And they've really struggled against the teams down towards the bottom end. Derby they lost 3-0 against, Pompey they lost 3-0 against, didn't beat Argyle away or Stoke or Hull. So almost that Liam Manning trend is continuing, but only away from home, whereas at home they seem to found a way not to struggle so much against the poorer teams. So if I'm right and Coventry do dominate the ball and play a high line, I think we might see that classic Manning performance where they're happy in out of possession shape. They're really, really able to hurt the opposition on the counter. And I just worry with Coventry's current trend that if they continue to struggle to create against teams that I would say are maybe easier tasks than this one, then they might find it difficult on Saturday. So yeah, Bristol City to win 5-1 is my long shot.
Nice. Yeah, my long shot is Gustavo Puerta of Hull City to score anytime at Millwall at 20-1. And there are some similarities with the Oisin McEntee pick here. But this goes back a bit further, really. Last week, George interviewed the impressive Ruben Sayes. And one of the things that Sayes spoke about was Gustavo Puerta. And he said, in our system, Puerta is a number 8. And that interested me because Puerta, upon signing, and what we'd read about this young Colombian player, was that he was more of a defensive midfielder. So I thought, okay, Sellers has a clear idea of his strengths and his fit in a Sellers team, and he's going to play him number 8. And I remember thinking to myself, look out for his goal scorer odds, because that's always the light that goes off when you hear, I thought that guy was a defensive midfielder, but he's playing a bit higher up. Sure enough, I don't look up his goal scorer odds last week. Forget about it. He scores against Doncaster in the Cup and takes 4 shots and plays number 10. And I'm like, okay, we've missed the boat there.
Do you know what he was?
No, I haven't gone back to look see what he was. Right. We haven't missed the boat. 20-1 anytime against Millwall. Sellers' advanced midfield players at Reading, and in particular Harvey Nibbs, scored a lot of goals. Now, it is true that Nibbs sometimes played up top, sometimes played in a wide forward role, but also played a lot in this like really physical box-to-box goal-scoring midfield role that Sellers seems to like in his team. And if you watch their last few games, Puerta is playing that role with Slater and Alzat worrying about the build-up in the middle third. Puerta is trying to get on the ball in the final third and get inside the box as well, much more than he was before. And I don't know exactly how this game is going to go. I'm still...
Imagine if you did.
Not well. Sometimes you got a pretty clear idea.
Yeah.
I listen to your nap and your next best, mate. Sounds like you've already watched the game. Sometimes,
correct. Yeah.
I don't know.
And then they happen.
The uncertainty, George. The uncertainty comes from 2 new managers. Alex Neil at Millwall, who hasn't started that well. Sellers in at Hull, where there's been some good stuff, some not such good stuff. I don't really know what I think about this game overall. Hull, obviously, a long price, the away team to win, and that pops out Puerta at 20-1. But he's being priced up like a defensive midfielder that never scores. And he's playing in a number 8, maybe even number 10 role out of push. I think that represents value. So Gustavo Puerta, vamos! 20-1 for Hull. Anytime at Millwall this weekend. We are going to finish off with an under 2.5 goals quad. George, you've got 1 in League 1 and 1 in League 2. I've got the same, 1 in League 1, 1 in League 2. We're at 10-1. Talk us through your 2.
Salford, Fleetwood. We know that Salford basically don't concede any goals in the league. In the FA Cup, they concede a lot of goals.
Yeah.
But Fleetwood, not Man City. So there's that.
Yeah.
This is,
true.
So Carl Robinson has drilled Salford to be a very good side defensively. 8 wins to 0 in their last 9 games. It's been pretty incredible to see what they've been doing. Fleetwood manager, Pete Wild, who we know from his time at Barrow, is a very defensive-minded manager who's very good at drilling a defence. Fleetwood generally pretty good defensively anyway. This really looks like, to me, I wouldn't put you off backing it as a single at 8-11. I'm surprised it's that big because 2 sides are so solid defensively. And then Rotherham, Charlton favourites of the under squad, basically pop up every week and for good reason. Rotherham fans starting to be like, anyone noticing that we're playing a bit better?
I mentioned them in the playoff shake-up chat.
Yeah.
I mentioned them to say they're not going to make it. But I mentioned them to say, of the chunk of teams that they're within at the moment, at the top of the bottom half, they're probably the most likely to go on a run.
And it's felt like all season they've struggled.
You were hawking Nathan Lowe to Rotherham on the Monday pod.
Yeah, nice. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Huh. They beat Bolton 3-1 last time out, but before that it was 0-0, 0-1, 1-1, 1-0, 1-0. So binary, and they're going to Charlton's side. They don't concede much, don't create much. Again, feels like an obvious unders bet.
Okay. Mine are slightly longer odds than yours, so a bit more imagination being shown here.
Okay.
Bromley and Colchester.
How did that go with Norwich Coventry?
Go head-to-head in South London. And Colu are the one to start with here. They are boiling the game down to very little. Recently, an average in their last 8 league games of 1.5 non-penalty XG per match. That's for and against in their last 8 games. So the goal line is being driven down. 9 of their last... This is so good. 9 of Colchester's last 11 games in the league have been under 2.5 goals. The 2 that weren't were when they smashed a shambolic Swindon team 4-0 at home. And then in the reverse game, the 3-2 at Swindon, where 3 of the 5 goals were penalties, and at least 2 of them very, very questionable penalties. So, I mean, yeah, those 2 massive outliers, 9 out of 11 have gone unders. Bromley's home games averaged 3 goals a game, which kind of freaked me out a little bit. It doesn't sound very undersy, but it's actually 50-50 for under 2.5 goals to land. And mostly these are tight competitive games. I can't see there being much between these 2 sides. So I think a 0-0 or 1-0 either way, 1-1 max, hopefully. And then in League One, I got Reading and Stockport. Again, Reading home games are quite goalsy, but if you look at the breakdown of it, most of their high scores at the Madstad have been against the poorer teams in the division, bottom teams against whom they score 2, 3, 4 goals. And Stockport aren't that. They might have lost Louis Barry, which helps this bet, but they are very sturdy, very solid platform, good defensively. 66% of their games away from home have been unders this season, good defensively, and against teams outside the relegation zone, they rarely score more than a single goal away from home. They've only done that once. So the unders quad, 2 from League One, Reading, Stockport and Rotherham, Charlton, 2 from League Two, Salford, Fleetwood and Bromley, Colchester. That has been spat out by AK Bets at 10-1. You can back it on the special section of the AK Bets website. George, let's just recap those for us, shall we?
Yes. My nap is Derby at home to Watford at 13-10 with AK Bets. Pompey 100-30 at home to Borough is my next best. AK Bets pushing both of those out to match best price at the time of recording. Cobby Bishop anytime for Pompey is my goal scorer at 3-1. My long shot is Bristol City to beat Coventry 0 at 5-1.
Nice. My nap is Sunderland draw no bet at Burnley on Friday night. That's at 8-5 with AK Bets. My next best, Huddersfield at Blackpool on Saturday, 6-4. Asheen McEntee of Walsall anytime, 14-1 with AK Bets. And also Gustavo Puerta at 20-1 to score for Hull at Millwall. You can back those 2 on the special section of the football part of the AK Bets website, along with our unders quad, which is Rotherham, Charlton and Reading, Stockport in League One, Salford, Fleetwood and Bromley, Colchester in League Two at 10-1. Thank you very much for sitting through this. Great to have some live scenes as Oxford United announced the purchase of Mikael Ellick.
They haven't announced it.
They haven't announced it.
It's been broken.
You've ITK'd it.
Journos. No. Journos. Pete O'Rourke.
Frustrating this because I don't recognise transfers until I see clubs tweet it.
Yeah.
This could look silly. Is O'Rourke hitting 100%?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Really? 100% conversion rate?
No, but like when he says they're poised to land.
Poised. Such an annoying transfer expression. Well, let's hope Pete O'Rourke's right. Let's hope that Mikael Ellick signs for Oxford, and let's hope that everyone has a winning weekend, eh? That would be nice. Thanks to AK Bets for sponsoring the pod, and to you for listening and or watching on YouTube. Cheers. Go well.